Hello everyone, welcome back to KonekTwa. This is I think this is the fifth episode that we're doing, and with us today is a trendsetter in his industry. I think his work truly was needed in Mauritius. Please welcome Gabriel Froid. Thank you so much for coming, Gabriel.
Thank you for inviting me.
A pleasure. I especially admire the initiative you've taken with all the colors and patterns. It's reminiscent of Africa, but at the same time, sometimes I feel like a lot of those patterns remind me of India as well. Do you have inspiration from those parts of the world?
True. The first thing that I thought while designing and bringing forward my brand is that to have a cosmopolitan aspect with it. The fact that we are in Mauritius, we have it's like a culture hub here. So we have different cultures coming from different parts of the world. And I wanted to incorporate that in my brand, and that's why maybe, like you're saying, some of the colors represent not only Africa but also India or even China also. Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you who do not know Gabriel Froid, can you describe yourself?
Okay, so Gabriel Froid is a designer. Yeah, it's not Freud.
Oh
it's
my
Froid.
God.
So I'm a designer and creative director for my brand, the African Marquis. And I'm also working as a full-time assistant relationship officer for an offshore company. And I'm 23 years old, and I've been doing Indian classical dance for 7 years right now. And yeah.
That I was about to come to that. How did that happen? For 7 years, you did Indian classical.
Yeah, actually, I was going to my high school, which is the Mahatma Gandhi Secondary School of FLAC, a branch of the Mahatma Gandhi Institute, whereby there we have the prone the Indian culture. So while I joined the Form 1 there at Mahatma Gandhi Secondary School FLAC, they already proposed to the students, that is just when they start going to school, if ever they want to do the cultural part, that is either it's music or dance, or playing instruments like tabla, sitar. So for music, it will be like Carnatic vocal. And for dance, there will be mainly Bharatanatyam, Kathak, and Kuchipudi. So at that time, the fact that I was the only guy wanting to do dance, but I followed the others. I said, okay, I'm going to do tabla. And at Form 3, I was like, okay, I so wanted to do dance that I ran off from my tabla class and I went to my Bharatanatyam teacher and I told her, okay, I want to do dance. So she told me, okay, you can join for the professional courses after school. And then I said, okay, yeah. So that's why it started like this. So I did certificate and advanced courses at the Mahatma Gandhi Institute.
Amazing. And talking about tabla, when I was really young, I think I was like 7 or 8, my mom pushed me to do tabla and I hated it. Like those ta, tin, tin,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, I did n'importe quoi. J'ai fait n'importe quoi. Et like I hated that so much. How many months did you do tabla?
For 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. But I was quite good at it. So
oh my God.
Because we have good teachers. Yeah. That's why. We have good teachers who are professionally trained in the field, be it for dance, music, or even playing the instruments, that is sitars or tabla. So they really bring forward this aspect of India in the teachings. And it's very important because for me, I was like, I'm a culture lover. So be it from the African, Indian, Chinese. And I also did Islamic studies for my upper 6, that is 2 years, lower and upper, I did Islamic studies. And that's how I got a scholarship to go to university to study law. So it really helped me being someone who loved cultures and embracing all this and being in a school which bring all this forward. So it really helped. And it helps you to have like an anchor in the Mauritian culture itself.
Wow. It's like you embody what a Mauritian should know.
Yeah.
It's like as you said, we live in a melting pot of cultures, and I think less people would be such, um, sorry, but like bigots if they understood from their childhood uh, all the different cultures that come into Mauritius. Yeah. Tell me more about why law.
Okay. Since childhood, I so wanted to do law because I was growing up in an environment which was mainly like I've seen people who have been convicted, who have been mainly accused of something that they did not do, and who unfortunately did not have the means to go forward with this or even to hire a lawyer to defend them. So while seeing all this, I said, okay, one day I'm gonna be a lawyer. And my grandmother was always someone who encouraged me in this dream of mine. And also, while going to high school, for instance, I studied mainly the linguistic part, that is French, English main, and even Islamic studies. So that's why I wanted to really become a lawyer and mainly to defend people who did not have the opportunity to be defended, to have their voice being heard. So, yeah.
Wow, Gabriel, you should write a book. You should honestly write an autobiography saying the Froid truth. But all right, from law now, because I didn't know that you were a law student, I knew you as your brand. And your brand is so fresh in Mauritian culture. Do you believe that it was high time for someone to be empowering Africa the way that you are?
Yeah, because why I would say it's a high time for it, especially now that everything is moving all around. The inspiration behind the brand comes from something which I might say it's quite silly, but for instance, when I was a kid, I did not have this, I will say, an icon with whom I can identify myself to. And being kids, we watch cartoons and stuff. There was no African kid the black kid being represented in cartoons. Mainly, I would have seen Kirikou, but it's not the perfect depiction of Africa. So I said, okay, while growing up, things are moving on, but I did not see anything here. So for me, the main essence, like to bring the brand forward, it does not it's not only a clothing apparel, but I wanted it to be an ecosystem which have a strong political engagement also. Wow. Yeah.
You're absolutely right when it comes to black role models in Indian culture. Supposedly in the Mahabharata, they wrote that they described Krishna, the Lord Krishna, as dark as rain clouds. So his skin is as dark as rain clouds. But in the depictions, in the representations of Krishna, is always pale blue. Yeah. In the pale blue, in the movies that they play Krishna, it's always a white man. And I always thought that like it was such a controversy, and there's no role models in my culture at least. Did you feel that while working in the industry, in the fashion industry as well in Mauritius?
Yeah, but the thing is that Mauritius, it's like what I was saying, it's a culture hub and we have this métissage, so I can't even today like define what is really black and what is, because we are so mixed up in the sense that it's a good thing because, for example, someone coming from a European background or would be mixed up with an Indian parent or something like that, so to give an offspring which is quite embracing all these cultures. But to be honest, the fact that we have an identification, for example, I can say that the people coming from the Indian descendants, they can identify themselves, okay, we come from this country, from this continent that is India and all. People coming from China, they can identify themselves, but we as descendants of slaves, mainly coming from Africa, we cannot, there is no such identification, or we do not have this sense of appartenance at a certain point in time, like a specific place in the world. We do not have this. Our own history is limited to slavery and also to the fact that we have the Sega, but that's not the perfect depiction of our culture. It goes far beyond this. And that's why I wanted to explore by bringing this brand forward. Of course, like we say, clothing represents a very important part of a culture. And for example, here, like I would take this again, and when you go to an Indian wedding, you will wear churidar and all these saris. Same for the Muslims, same for the Chinese, but same for the Tamil, for example. But we do not have this. And I think it's high time for us to go back in history, to go back in our culture and study where do we come from really.
You're absolutely right, and I read it somewhere. Okay, forget about reparations. Forget about paying monetary ways of like paying the damages made by colonizers. But what we notice today is everywhere in the world, you learn, especially in Mauritius, you learn English as a language. You learn French as a language. You learn Mandarin. You learn Hindi. But never do we learn Swahili or Zulu or Xhosa, and I don't even know how to say Xhosa. But and in fact, it's quite the opposite. People, when I was growing up, people used to insult someone by saying they're Zulu. I don't know if it's still the thing, but that's how bad it was when I was growing up. And that's awful. That's absolutely awful. So I think instead of just learning European and Asian languages, we should also understand the way that you did with Islamic studies, and with Indian dances. We should embrace Africa as well as much as we can, because we are, at the end of the day, an African nation. How can we call ourselves an African nation when half of us don't even know what Africa stands for, you know? Sorry, I went on a rant. But yeah, I was thinking about that Winston Churchill said that history will be nice to him because he's the one writing it. And that's why I believe like the problems that we are facing now with the identity crisis is mostly to do with the colonizers. I'm going to get so much hate for this. But yeah, as I was saying, did you feel like there was a high time for you in the industry to represent Africa? Did you feel like there were inspirations in Mauritius, people who were already doing some African work?
Yeah, there are people already doing some African work in terms of designing or already have their brand, but it does not. It's much more to a commercial thing. You know, that's why I wanted to make the difference by bringing my perspective forward. And I wanted it to embrace what is all about the culture. And that's why I'm saying that I don't want it to limit itself to being a clothing apparel, but to grow as an ecosystem. Today I might be doing clothes, which is part of a culture. Tomorrow it might be food. Tomorrow it might be dance. And the African Marquis might be like a whole brand embracing all these different artistic pathways. So that's why I don't want it to limit. For the time being, it is only for clothing. But as far as I'm going forward, I will surely enlarge all these visions.
Wow, I wish you all the very best for that. It's much needed. You being pragmatic in such a way that you are a lawyer, you have like education behind you, but at the same time you're also a very creative person. And I suppose as a very creative kid, I'm talking out of experience, it wasn't very easy, because when you're creative, that thing that makes you special is really the focus point of everybody talking about that thing. For me, it was dancing. Like I will tell you honestly, like high school for me was tragic, was absolutely tragic, because like I like dancing. I would find any occasion to dance, and that would end up being a problem because a lot of bullies were like would point it out, and then create insecurities. Did that happen to you as well?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it would always be some kids will it's like that when you grow up, especially kids are really not good at all these things. So you will always have to, especially for most of the creative person that I know, they would tell me that okay, at some point in time in their life they have been bullied. But for me, the difference was that I started my artistic pathway by dancing, doing Indian classical dance. So at that point in time, this is how I view it. A guy from a different culture coming forward, being in a school who prunes the Indian culture and which teaches you this. I have already embraced that at being a kid, and coming forward to dance also, because Indian classical dancing is not just a dance; it's a way to venerate a god. I'm
Yeah,
sure you must know
Bharatanatyam,
that
yeah.
exactly. So coming forward with all this cultural aspect, it was such an admiration from these teachers, from my friends, and yeah, I was called Limit the dancer at school. So it was really cool. But of course, in the beginning, people did not understand, especially boys. They don't understand all this because I never played football, for instance. There is all this how will I say, the gender, association, that is boys should do this and girls should do that, which is quite the case, and I think it's still going on. For instance, when I just joined the school, okay, boys should do tabla or instrumental music, and girls or will obviously do dance. So it's quite anchored in the mindset of people, and then when you try to go forward and just change it all, that might be disturbing to some people, but others will say, okay, this is quite fantastic, and yeah, let's just celebrate this. So it was for me, in the beginning, I would say, yeah, quite shocking for some people, and then afterwards there was this celebration aspect. Yeah.
Wow. I think you're absolutely right, but at the same time, I have a friend, a very good friend. She's a girl, she's a Zumba instructor. And just because her career makes her dance and makes her, do Zumba, there's so much hatred because of the fact that she's a woman. I never had any hatred in terms of, oh, he's a dancer, he's a boy, he's a dancer. I didn't get that in my adulthood.
Yeah.
But she still has those problems with her own family and with with the people around her, that just because she's a woman and she's a Zumba instructor, there are so many horrible names that are given to her. And she was telling me that the other day, and I was shocked because I feel for the first time I felt I was privileged
Yeah.
in a certain way, that people are not commenting about those things about me. But what do you have to say about gender norms and gender stereotypes that we have in Mauritius?
Difficult. Still today, I can see that there is this thing that boys should do this and girls should do that. But in a world that we are living, we are 2020, things have to move forward. We need to embrace all this, because there is no such job or no such activities that is reserved for only one gender. And for instance, we can see that I travel by bus. There's always a bus controller who would be a female, and I'm like, so admire that. Or even when I see female, women doing constructing houses, all these things, or men being makeup artists, for example.
Yeah.
We see this is it's part of the industry, and I see this quite of a daily basis, and people have make their jobs out of it. I know, for example, Ashish Ragba, Mason, Hans Dax. So several people embracing all this, and then you can say, like, there are different people also who are quite admiring this job that they are doing as makeup artists, hairstylists, designers. And this is where I can say, okay, I have hope for the future. And I hope that this keeps on going on like really well for them and for all the people who are initiating projects in this industry. Yeah.
That being said, like it or not, you, Ashish, Cedric, at the end of the day, they don't know it, but you become role models for the next generation, because above this generation there was not a lot of people to look onto, you know. Il y avait qui comme who was like a makeup artist who was before Cedric, I didn't know of any like popular and successful makeup artists, men makeup artists. And I think like it or not, you become a role model. That being said, my question is, did you have any backlash by showing or putting forward the African brand, African Marquis?
No, not as such, but as I told you, there will always be, whatever you do, you will always have critics. You will always be criticized. For me, maybe it was the fact that I was embracing and putting forward like black models, and because I never saw, I won't say I never thought that before, but on a runway having like most of the models being black, it's something which is quite like, I won't say innovative, but for me it's something new, you know, even in Mauritius seeing that. So, and especially with all the movements going on all around the world, having activists like Naomi Campbell, Iman, and other people like the authors Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, fighting for it, Lupita Nyong'o, and all these people, you feel like you're connected to them, and you feel like you need, if ever this platform has been given to me, I need to do something with it. Like I said, I don't really want this to be only a clothing apparel, but something which has a significance, which makes a difference from other people who are in the industry or who might be doing their thing, which I really appreciate. But for me, it's much more about the symbolism that it represents that I want to put forward. Yeah.
Me as a choreographer and you as a would I call you a fashion designer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that your vision is much more than that. Exactly. But we are known by our latest successes, our latest projects. And I wanted to talk about the work life and the stress levels that we take, because what happens is if our latest project doesn't work, it erases all of the hard work for years that we've put. How does that affect your work-life balance?
It's quite stressful in the sense that you need to always keep trend of whatever's going on, and you need to always keep posting, keep doing shows, keep doing I don't know, any projects, or if you do not do this, this is how I feel about it, that you get erased quite easily. You know, and there are also many people coming forward with different things, so you need to keep up with all whatever's going on. And of course, if you've invested for a long period of time bringing forward something, and then just because of one project that did not maybe represent well for a certain people, you get erased completely from the industry, or you get negative comments about that. I mean, it's quite difficult. Yeah. So you need to know, especially in the industry that we are moving forward in, you need to know where you're putting your steps. What are you doing? So it's quite critical.
Yeah.
And for example, for me, before doing a show, before doing a shooting, I need to think, well, okay, for example, is the model that I'm going to put forward to represent my creations, does it embody my vision of things? Will, in case if it doesn't, for me it might be clear in my mind, but what is the message that I want to portray? You know, several people will have different kind of perceptions about my work, and like it or not, I need to go along with this. Yeah. And I need to be sure of also of what I'm doing. So on a daily basis, yeah, I can tell you it's very stressful.
Because what happens is you take so much pressure on yourself that your workload for one day moves from 6 hours. Oh, well, it's never 6 hours. It's always
more than that.
It's always more than that. But when it's supposed to be humanely 6 hours, 8 hours, we end up spending 14 to even 17 hours a day working, just because we have to consistently prove ourselves. And at the end of the day, what I've noticed out of experience is the small things in our mind that we think are going to help or going to benefit, like, are going to change everything. Usually those are the least, those change only in your mind, and everybody else doesn't pay attention to those things. So, like, I need to find a way for me to stop working for 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. But yeah, that being said, Gabriel, what can we look forward to for the next coming months?
Several projects that I'm currently working on. I was supposed to be doing the Fashion Week, the Hennessy Fashion Week 2020, but because of the confinement, the corona and all this, it got postponed. We do not know for when it will be, but that will be for sure one of the projects that I'm hitting for 2020. And several shootings going on, and different collections that I'm trying to bring forward. So you will surely hear about this quite soon. Yeah.
And if one of my listeners doesn't follow you, how can they follow you on Instagram?
Okay, my Instagram name will be African Marquis, so it's african.marquis, and I have a Facebook page also.
Yes.
So it's the African Marquis, and my personal page is Gabriel Froid.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Thank you for coming once again.
Thank you for having me.
I'll see you guys again next episode. Bye.
Bye.